what's the effect if you don't partake in those either of those activities? How's your day developing? How's the energy for you?
It's crazy because it feels counterintuitive. You would think I would be more tired, but I
Right.
know on the weekend, if I give myself a sleep in, I just am sluggish. I feel like I need it,
Yeah.
but it actually isn't as good for me as the getting up. So I'm actually a low performer when I don't do that. So I'm sort of saying I don't do it for any fitness. I do it to get myself up and going. And, every day I do a cold shower and that's not enjoyable. But
Right.
I go, that just gives me that boost that says, David, you're on.
Let's learn how our next guest gets up, dress up, and show up on purpose. Enjoy the episode. Hello, morning enthusiasts. Welcome to the Best Morning Routine Ever podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lunid, and today I have the honor of introducing a very special guest to the show, David Dilger. Now, he is the co-founder of Edge Legal. It is an Australian employment safety law firm that transforms employee-employer relations by really fostering actually respectful, legal, and sound workplaces. And it's unique because he has tagged along the psychology of safety and communication, and then blend that with the legal insight and practical uses of HR experiences. So it's phenomenal that how that has been transforming the employee-employer dynamic. So it's really nice to have him on here today so we can dive into what that looks like even more. With no further ado, David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lanu. Glad to be along.
Yes, thank you for coming. So tell us about how Edge Legal actually started.
Okay, so look, I started many years ago. I graduated from law school with a Bachelor of Arts majoring in HR and law. And then I practiced for a few years, went in to become working as a lawyer in an employer-only association, so helping employers with their IR parts. Then I went on and did an MBA just to further my studies and worked on more HR, majoring in HR. I then went into an in-house role for a manufacturing company. Then I went out and became the national HR manager of a 40-store bakery franchise, which I later went on to become the CEO of. We're lucky enough to win the People Management Awards in the state of Tasmania and were the national runners-up. I then went back to head up the Employer Association where I'd previously been a lawyer in their workplace relations area, back into private practice where I became a partner of a 100-employee law firm, and then I created with my business partner Edge Legal. And Edge Legal is just a boutique employment and safety firm. And ultimately, our mission is we want to train and advise managers to be the kind of managers we would allow our children to work for. And so really what we'd sort of found over 30 odd years of working in this area is that it's how managers treat their people that gives effectiveness. You can work on all of the other productivity hacks, but ultimately how you talk and manage your individual people will determine both the success of the business and the success of the individuals involved.
Yeah, so you've kind of gathered all the experiences from both spectrum because you kind of went back and forth between the two. And then from what you've learned, it sounds like you saw there was a need. There was a need to kind of talk, work in leadership essentially because you realize the people are the cornerstone of the businesses mostly. So let's talk about the mission. The Eagle Edge Legal mission and how it's using managers working with managers to foster that.
Our mission is helping workplaces deliver results with respect for their people. And our core values are self-awareness, being really helpful, being in it together and owning it. And so what we say is they're our values. We like to live by them. And then hopefully other organisations, not saying you would take on our values, but we hope our advice gives all of those values coming through in that relationship. Because from a technical legal point of view, lawyers just tend to focus on compliance, whereas HR managers understand the relationship, and the real answer is somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. And you think about managers and how they lead people. If like any change really should start from the top down, right? And so let's talk about leader managers and their leadership styles and how it really impact the employees.
You know, we talk about self-awareness. I think a great author, Simon Sinek, said it best when he said, if you don't understand people, you don't understand business.
Yeah.
Um, it is fundamentally a people game. And ultimately, each of us sees ourselves um, as we are. We don't really see things as they are for everyone else. And I've broken it down into what I've, in a fun sort of way, 4 types of managers. The first type of manager I call the bear, and the bear does a lot of what I call hibernating from people management for about 6 months a year. They do nothing. And then when it becomes intolerable, they come out and indiscriminately carnage on dealing with management. And what that tends to lead is the blind spot is they don't bring people along with them. And under more pressure, they lose concern of others. They're looking at the big picture. I just need to get to here. But ultimately, their soft underbelly is they fear loss of control or power. An ex-manager, I call the dog, probably best explained. And if you think of the English version of The Office, David Brent, when introducing himself to a new hire, he says, think of me as a friend first, boss second, and entertainer third. These people are social glue. They understand how things work from a people management perspective, but they love to be liked. So their blind spot is they can be overly positive. Under pressure, they tend to become a bit more disorganized because they're trying to do all the fun stuff and not the hard management. And ultimately, their soft underbelly is social rejection. You could say, hey, Linede, you didn't get that report on time. That won't worry you as much as saying the team don't like you as much as they used to. Our third manager is what I call the mouse. And the mouse understands people. They're consensus driven, but they tend to be that manager who gets in and manages by avoidance. So rather than actually getting people and saying, hey, this level isn't appropriate, they're more likely to get in and do the job themselves. So they get on that hamster wheel themselves. So if you're, at 11 o'clock at night doing a review of a report that should have been done by one of your subordinates, you're probably a mouse manager. Your blind spot is you focus on other people's needs. You're too obliging under pressure, and you're fearing the loss of stability. But what that leads to is a lack of discretionary effort. You'll either burn out yourselves or other people will have to burn themselves out to deal with the slack that you're allowing to creep in. And our final manager is what I call the ostrich. Now, the ostrich has got that famous head in the sand mentality. They're great at knowing the rules, but they don't believe that people management is their core role. So their blind spot is they don't see the bigger picture. They can be overly critical under pressure, but their greatest fear is not being seen as competent themselves. So what that leads to is a high compliance requirement and not a lot of focus on actual people performance. So they can tick KPIs, but you might have a very unhappy team. And
Yeah.
look, overall, you've got to bring all of it. Ultimately, you won't be the perfect manager. The perfect manager I'm still searching for is the unicorn. And they just don't exist, unfortunately. But it's really telling managers, do less of the bad stuff. Don't try and be something you're not. Just do less of the bad behaviors you do, and you're more likely to be effective.
Yeah, I was gonna say they all suck. It sounds like they they all.
Well, look,
I was waiting for the unicorn. I was waiting for the perfect, but it sounds like there's good and bad, right? There's good traits that you can take, and then kind of knowing your weaknesses and hiring people to step in and kind of do where you lack, to step to complement
yeah.
you per se.
So the great stuff is they're the GSDs of the world. They get stuff done. The dog has an ability to bring people along with them to sell the vision. The mouse is a consensus builder, and the ostrich, yeah, they plan. They're more diplomatic, and they have, well, what I would call some rigor to their management. So you're right. I did focus on the negatives, but there are absolutely the positives for those as well.
Yeah, that they can thrive on and kind of utilize to lead, because I imagine they're effective. They're in that position because they're effective. It maybe not 100% of the time, but they're effective maybe 80-90% of the time. And so how do you go in, and how do you with your organization go in and kind of find out where that weak link is, and then step in to make them stronger so they can lead effectively?
Yeah, look, it's interesting, Lenny. We tend to find that more of I would say, the media blow up and the hysteria around it is managers who are bullies or who go in too hard, like the bear. But we would say more likely the type of behaviour is driven by avoidance. And so what we say is, and following on from Brene Brown's message, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And so in my experience, I've found more managers avoid the behaviour, and we've taken on this overly nice language, which isn't effective. It's not what Kim Scott called radical candor. And so what they tend to do is have so rather than saying, hey, Lanid, can you put your dishes away when you go into the staff kitchen? They put a message up that says, reminding everyone, kitchen courtesy. Everyone knows it's Lanid, but the manager just doesn't have that discussion because it'd be too uncomfortable. So we talk about four main principles. When you're managing people, don't go for a too higher intensity and focus on misconduct. Instead, characterize more issues as performance. Now, when you characterize things as performance first, you actually say, I'm working on the slippage. And you're actually saying, as a manager, I back myself that I will be able to get you from here to up here where you need to be, rather than making an allegation that you've breached a policy, a contract, some code of conduct. I don't ever think you're going to start off a great relationship when you say to someone, hey, come along to a meeting. This may end up in the termination of your employment. The second one I say is get on your competency care seesaw. Stop looking for the cookie cutter approach where all issues are dealt the same. Sometimes you've got to balance up on competency. Other times you've got to balance up on care. And that may change individually for the person. So if someone's having some problems at home, death in the family, some sort of illness, you balance up on your competency. You balance up more on the care side and less on the competency. But when things right themselves, then it might be more focused on competency. But it's being aware that it's a continual seesaw. The third one is always reasonable management action carried out reasonably. It's a well-worn legal concept, but what I think, and we're at pains to sort of demonstrate, for lots of cases, courts these days understand that management is a tough gig.
Mhm.
So stop looking for perfect management and stop looking for the alternative textbook way. Plenty of decisions understand that people become exasperated And that conflict of itself, if managed reasonably and respectfully, is okay. And what we've found is getting managers to actually step in, as Brene Brown calls rumble, and have those discussions is actually going to be more likely to be effective than not doing anything. And that's unreasonable management action, is to do nothing, which tends to be where people go. And then finally, our last principle is always show cause someone before you're going to do something. That is, give them the opportunity to respond. Say, here's what I'm proposing to occur. You tell me why you shouldn't do that. Now that will be far more valuable than having warning and termination letters. You build up to that approach through genuine, authentic materials. And we say if you're not meeting at least weekly or fortnightly with your individual subordinates for one-on-one meetings, you're doing yourself a disservice and you're doing the rest of your organisation a disservice as well, because organisations understand that they want the manager to deal with two things: poor performers and poor performance. If you walk into any organisation, you say, who's the poor performer? They all know. It's kind of like the naughty kid in the classroom. Everyone knows who it is, but no one mentions their name. But everyone's hoping that it's fixed.
Mm. Yeah, that speaks a lot of volume, and I kind of I like what you said about if providing criticism, if wanting to make a change, that you look at the slippage and how performance and how we can be better, how can we improve this, as opposed to just flat out criticism or feedback that is not constructive, that is not tied back to the KPIs, as you mentioned, to enhance improvement.
Yeah.
That, yeah, that ties in very nicely. Let's talk about the psychological safety that you put in, you kind of tie in with the HR piece of it, and how that can be a barrier.
Yeah, so psychosocial safety is critical. It's in lots of legislation now. It's interesting. It's never been out of the legislation. We've always had to have people safe, but now the focus is on their mental health and their emotional well-being, whether it's the systems, the equipment, the environment, the interactions, and that all works around from how individuals, their headspace goes. So psychologically and biologically, here's what happens. Ultimately, information comes in through our senses and it's got a decision to make. It goes into the thalamus and it says, if it's a risk or some sort of hazard, it goes to the amygdala. And the amygdala goes, I can deal with this with fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. When that's happening, your frontal cortex, which is your logical part of almost like your computer in your brain, it gets impacted. So when your amygdala is firing, your frontal cortex doesn't operate as well. Your emotions are regulated, either over or under. You suffer memory impacted. And there's a guy, Dr. Gilmartin in the US, and he was trying to work out why is it that police officers suffer more health consequences than fire officers when both of them are first responders. And he said it was all about this continual aspect of, if you're feeling under risk or being aware of hazards, you are going to impact on your amygdala, which then impacts on your overall immune system. Whereas with the fire officers, they can just come in, they deal with very difficult issues, but ultimately it's not pervasive. So it rises up and then it goes back down. Now imagine if you're in a workplace and you're thinking, oh my gosh, here's my boss, and 8 hours a day, you're worried about it. That's when your amygdala is actually making you sick by protecting you.
It's chronic. It becomes chronic. It becomes
Yep.
it becomes a problem, because then adrenal cortisol is being released because then you want to fight, or you again fight or flight or freeze, right? So that the brain cannot handle so much cortisol, or just so much like chronic fear or just lack of safety for a long period of time.
Yeah, I understand that cortisol, when the amygdala is triggered, you get about 90 seconds of an original burst, and that'll protect you until you need another 90. Now, the amygdala just keeps on giving you that 90-second burst, and as you say, it becomes a chronic health problem. Great in small doses, not good with lots of.
Yeah, it's this designed to protect you. Run away from that bear, run away from that lion, go to safety. But if it's
Yeah.
every day, like you said, 9 hours a day, this the bus day in and day out, it does become an issue. And a lot of times I see it develop in the workplace as adrenal fatigue. Have you heard of this?
Yep. Yep. That's exactly what I think Gil Martin was talking about with the police officers. From the moment they step in that patrol car or they're walking the beat, they're not thinking, oh, this is great, I'm just out for a walk. They're thinking, what's going on here? That cortisol, the adrenaline's pumping through your system, and that's what it's doing.
Yeah, that is that's cause for early burnout. That's cause for lack of sleep. That's called for hormonal issues, digestion, and it really can run havoc. We're not just talking about stress; like it can really cause ulcers eventually, because it's so profound, the impact.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's significant that's chronic stress, which a manager is responsible for ensuring that we're taking at least the protective measures. Now, ultimately, the way you do that is by a bit of exposure therapy. If I only see you really once a year for some sort of formulaic performance appraisal, or when you're upset with me, then I begin to associate you with danger and my amygdala is triggered. Whereas if I were to regularly meet with you once or twice, or either twice or, fortnightly or once a week, the issue then would be significant because what you're doing is you're saying, hey, I can deal with this. I've dealt with this at least 52 times a year and it's okay. And I think ultimately the test of a good organisation is this. If you see an employee go into a manager's office or a manager calls them in and no one goes, ooh, Lanid's in trouble, that's when you know you've got psychosocial safety. You basically want people to think, why is Lanid in David's office? Probably just having a chat about some work issues. That's the test.
Yeah, yeah, well put. And what are some communication mistakes that can lead to conflict? That was a great example that you provided. What are some more, and how can they be avoided?
I think one of the communication mistakes we're seeing most of is that we don't give enough positive feedback.
Mhm.
And when we do give positive feedback, it's really a platitude. So there's no context to it. So what you tend to see is a lot of managers going, good on you, Lanid. Well done, Lanid, without the context of thanks for getting that report on time, Lunid. It's enabled me to get my job ahead and now we've met our KPIs. Or thanks for turning up early, Lunid. We got so much more done and David was able to leave early and pick up his kids. So I think unfortunately feedback has been wrongly equated with constructive negative feedback and missing that at their disposals, managers can short, sharp and sweet give positive feedback with appropriate context so it doesn't just become a platitude. And the more you can do of that, the more psychosocial safety you get because you get people feel belonging, people feel like they can have learner safety, they get contributor safety, and then finally they get challenger safety, which means I can speak up and say, hey, wrong way, go back, without fear of a genuine reprisal.
Yeah, keeping the feedback objective with as many details as possible, specifics as possible is good. I've also heard of the sandwich. What's your take on that one?
Look, I understand the sandwich And I think the intent is great, but the problem with it is a lot of the science says we need almost 90% to 10. So if I give a sandwich, I'm really working on the negative being a third. And what you tend to have happen is people will still focus on the negative. If you don't get enough regular positive feedback, you understand that someone's really gaming you. And although it's sandwiched by the positive feedback, I just don't think it's enough for someone to mentally separate those issues out. They'll just focus on the negative. So I think the intent was good, but I think the science shows us we're going to do a lot more positive feedback and build up those interactions so that the individual actually, their amygdala is just going, yeah, I understand I'll be able to cope with this, rather than going, oh, okay, here we go, good, bad, good.
hmm And keeping it consistent, right? Regular, consistent, and frequent. It sounds like that's what I'm hearing from you.
Definitely. And if you're meeting at least fortnightly or weekly, you'll get that. It won't suddenly just appear. It builds up over time, and you'll feel that those discussions become easier. Earlier on, I get it. You'll feel, oh, this is a pain. But I love the almost the quirky saying of your job is to do your job. Right? Now people go, oh, that's ridiculous, David. What do you mean by that? Well, you've got to understand your job as a manager is to apply the leverage model. You're going to make sure that your team is doing okay. You set the environment for them. So a lot of managers just manage tasks without managing the people. So your job is to manage the people. And what better way than having a discussion with them, seeing how their performance is going and doing it regularly.
Well put. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Let's talk about how you get up, dress up, and show up. What's your morning routine like?
My morning routine is based on four distinct options. So I always get up at 5:30. I have a glass of water with some creatine in it, and I do four things. I either go for a long walk, about an hour. The other workout is I go and do weights, and I do that for bone density and metabolism. The third one is I actually do some aerobic Pilates, so building the heart rate up and doing some stretching. As I get older, the bones creak a bit more and the flexibility lessens. And the fourth one is a cold water swim, followed by some Wim Hof breathing. Now I use all of those and I just choose one of them per day. So I do that to avoid, oh, I've got to go to the same place all the time. And it's a mixture between body stressing and active recovery, but I've got to do something. And then of a morning, I won't eat until I've done that. I'll eat about 7 o'clock and I'll always just have either sardines, tuna, or salmon, or alternatively, I'll eat avocado and tahini, and that's it. I'll have a cup of matcha with coconut milk, and that's my morning, and then I walk to work. I
Wow.
do that, yeah, 5 days a week, and on Saturday, Sundays, I just do whatever I want. There's no plan. I eat what I want. I might have eggs on toast, and that just keeps me sane and traveling okay.
Yeah, you gotta have those off days. You got to recharge, to
Yep.
recuperate, so that you don't get monotonous. You don't get bored. It doesn't get boring for you. So I have to say that you almost missed your long walk this morning because we were scheduled for 6:30, and so I'm glad we were able to push it back.
Then it doesn't worry me because then I just adjust. I just move whatever I was doing in the morning, and I just do it later. But I like to get it done, and that would have kept me up. I may have just gone for a short walk, and the dog would have been upset if we'd had the earlier one.
Yeah, and I'm glad you shared that because we have a similar schedule. I work out 5 in the morning, and then my day starts at 6:30, and because family business, so everybody's awake by then. Um, you have the dogs. What's the effect if you don't partake in those, it's either of those activities? How's your day developing? How's the energy for you?
It's crazy because it feels counterintuitive. You would think I would be more tired, but
Right.
I know on the weekend, if I give myself a sleep in, I just am sluggish. I feel like I need it,
Yeah.
but it actually isn't as good for me as the getting up. So I'm actually a low performer when I don't do that. So I'm sort of saying like I don't do it for any fitness. I do it to get myself up and going. And every day I do a cold shower, and that's not enjoyable. But
Right.
I go, that just gives me that boost that says, David, you're on.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I can appreciate so much, and I'm smiling because you're speaking truth around it, because a lot of the entrepreneurs that come on here, that's exactly what they say. It gives them more energy. The cold shower actually gives you more endurance for the day. You're not as fatigued faster. Like you gain, it's just the benefits are just so evident, so in your face, that if like you said, the weekend, it's more of a slow pace. I can definitely say that for energy wise. It's like, oh, I'm gonna walk a lot slower. I'm probably gonna sit on the couch a little longer, but it is recovery. It is needed. Or I'm just gonna do family activities where my brain doesn't need to be on as it
Yeah.
does Monday through Friday, where I need that cold shower, I need that workout, I need that meditation session, because I need to be on every hour on the hour.
Spot on. Spot
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, so it really speaks volume to see that you yourself, as successful as you are doing it and getting the same results, because it's tried and true is what I want to say.
Yeah, and look, I measure nothing. So I'm not going to the gym lifting a certain pound of weight. I just sit there, I do it, I work till I fatigue. Some days that might be 10 sets, some days it might be 8, some days it may be 2. Just listen to my body and I go, that's it. I think I get for some people they need certain goals. For me, it's actually the feeling of that actually determines it. And I think I certainly made those mistakes in my youth of working towards like must do this, must do that, hit these KPIs. And ultimately, I would overtrain when my body was telling me, no, you just need a rest because you've had a busy week at work. And it's the it's the heavy mental load that now is more taxing on me. I sort of find that enables in the work that I do. It's not me being able to stand up or sit down for long periods. It's actually thinking. So all of that stuff kind of helps. And I think the switch to a more protein-based
Mhm.
breakfast definitely helps. Sharper, and you just don't get that, excuse me, those lags.
Yeah, and then it's progressive energy being released versus the carb overload, the carb breakfast, where it's high and then you crash. So
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, energy throughout the day being released with the higher protein diet. So it's these little things that are just, it's free, right? It's just being aware, that the key awareness, and that's what you talk with the managers, is a self-awareness, understanding the body, listening to yourself, knowing when you're mentally fatigued and when to take a break, or when you're interacting with someone. It's just that sense of awareness makes a huge of a difference, makes such a big difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I swear by it.
Yeah. Well, tell us, where can we connect with you? Where can we find you?
Look, LinkedIn's probably the best place to get me. I produce 1 or 2 articles a week. I talk about all things psychosocial safety, employment law, safety law. You can also contact us at edgelegal.com.au or email me on ddilger, all one word, at edgelegal, all one word, .com.au. Love to hear from you.
Fantastic. David, thank you so much for coming on and sharing. It really has been a joy connecting with you.
Thanks, Lynette. Been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please comment and tell us what was your favorite part, your favorite habit that you are going to try out for yourself today. Comment below. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. Until next time, I will see you at the top of your best morning routine ever. Stay blessed.